So I wanted to bring up a situation strategy that some newer Necron players may not really have thought of or think about a whole lot, and something that I think is really important to keep in mind. So very simply, a couple weeks ago, I was playing a Tau opponent, and I had to bring in my Wraiths and aggressively use them to bait my enemy's Breachers who wanted to do a secondary on the side of the board. So they popped out, they used a couple CP, and took my Wraiths down to 2. So really messed them up quite heavily. Actually, I think he may have even brought them down to 1, and I used a Technomancer to bring 1 back. But as it stands, they were barely alive. They weren't going to be able to kill those Breachers by themselves. So I used some other units to take down those Breachers and fully deny that secondary, because these Wraiths would have just died. So to use them for maximum effect, now that they've drawn out those Breachers, is that I zoomed them over to my enemy's near deployment zone objective. And because I'm Nihilak, as with most of us these days, I'm OBSEC, and he had that Devilfish and the detached drone sitting there to screen deep strike throughout his whole deployment zone area, as well as hold this objective. But since my Wraiths are OBSEC, they were able to zoom over, be within range of that objective, so could at least for one turn deny him the use of that primary. But because they weren't in engagement range, and all they did was move, they didn't fall back, there's no charging, etc., they're able to perform an action, so awaken ancient machineries, on an objective that he's near because I control it. And so I denied him the points, got me one of my secondaries with awaken ancient machineries, and then they were actually able to absorb fire from his Riptide, which was important to keep them away from my Scorpix that were midfield at the time, working on chopping up his commanders and his crisis suits. But in particular, this was just such a fantastic use of these remaining Wraiths, because they weren't going to be able to take down the Breachers by themselves. They weren't going to do a whole lot themselves. I probably should have, afterwards, had they survived, I would have probably taken down those 2 drones and denied just something that he could leave there to hold that objective. But one way or the other, it let me both deny some points and score some objectives. And so this is a good use of a fast but low strength unit that I could have continued repairing with the Technomancer bit by bit, but they wouldn't have been able to do a whole lot. It would have taken up the Technomancer. I needed him somewhere else for some other stuff going on midfield, but, well, actually kind of backfield. But either way, point being is that instead of these low strength units, I could have kept some Scarabs midboard, and then at first opportunity moved and done the same thing, which for 45 points, that is worth it. That is worth a minimum size Scarab unit, and is one of the best reasons why we have them.